It's nearly 2 in the morning and I was getting ready to go to bed, but Dana White dropped some massive fight announcements. At UFC 299, Dustin Poirier fights Benoit Saint-Denis. It's a special 5-round co-main event. At UFC 300, Charles Oliveira fights Arman Tsarukyan. The winner is said to be fighting Islam Makhachev this summer for the lightweight belt. These are huge fights that just got dropped, and I'm excited to talk about each one of them. I've been hoping for some fight news for a couple weeks now, and we kind of been waiting around for Dana to drop something big, and these are two absolute bangers. So I'm going to talk about the matchups, give my thoughts on both, what the implications have for the winners too, and how it's interesting to see both of these matchups have kind of like, the old guard in Oliveira and Dustin Poirier, and then the new blood, the killers on the come up, Benoit Saint-Denis and Arman Tsarukyan. So make sure you guys smash the likes, and if you're new, subscribe. Let's first talk about this Dustin Poirier-Benoit Saint-Denis fight. After Saint-Denis' last fight, he made a case to fight against Justin Gaethje. He feels like he is a BMF, and I'd say this is pretty damn close to that. Fighting Poirier, who has wins over Conor McGregor, fought for the world title against Khabib, fought for the world title against Oliveira, and obviously for the BMF belt, where he was brutally knocked out against Justin Gaethje. Now we got Saint-Denis, who's a super hot prospect on the come-up, taking him on, contender on the come-up, really. And what's a scary fight? I was actually a little bit surprised to hear that Poirier was willing to take a bout against the new blood. Saint-Denis, I believe he's ranked like number 12 right now in the lightweight division. Dustin Poirier, obviously in that top 4, top 5 still, but he has to fight off the guys on the come up if he ever wants a chance of emerging as a title challenger once again. But I think Benoit Saint-Denis is going to end his career here. This could be one of those situations where if Dustin Poirier loses, he realizes there is no longer a pathway to the belt. He may decide to retire. He may. Now, he talked about having enough finances to not to need, taking of fights that maybe the matchups weren't favorable or they're against opponents without the big names. So I was kind of surprised to hear that he's taking a fight against Benoit Saint-Denis, who surely has a lot of hype as a guy being built as a legit contender for 2024, but he hasn't got that real signature top tier win yet. His biggest win in his career, a W over Matt Frivola last time out. It was sick. High kick knockout win. Saint-Denis, equivalent of a Navy SEAL over in France. The guy's made of steel. And he's going to be a hellish fight for Dustin Poirier. Now, we have to say this. Boxing advantage, I still got to favor Poirier. His hands can move beautifully. But Benoit Saint-Denis is a very good hybrid MMA fighter with both dangerous striking, dangerous grappling, and really good durability. We're going to find out so much about Saint-Denis in this matchup because he's going to potentially be forced to head into those championship rounds. Now, how does he do with Poirier? Why do I have a feeling that he stings Poirier and puts him out? I think Benoit Saint-Denis might get Dustin out of there, and we might be looking at the face of the next guard as far as lightweight title challenges will go. Obviously, Tsarukyan is that next guard too, fighting Oliveira. We'll talk about that matchup in a couple of minutes. I think that Benoit Saint-Denis can overwhelm Poirier. I also think Dustin Poirier might not be the same anymore. Now, people will say, but he's not really old, right? He's 35. He's right at that cusp. He's taken a lot of damage. He's got a lot of miles on the car. Benoit Saint-Denis is a primed 28-year-old fighter that seemed to have all the goods of a guy that at the very least is going to get a spot in that top 5. I think he lays out Dustin Poirier. I'm worried about Poirier getting knocked out with shots. I think if we're looking at grappling, I know Poirier's jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt, and he's got the threat of the guillotine, but I don't see him dealing well with Benoit Saint-Denis, who can put ultimate pressure on you and just not stop. I see Saint-Denis overwhelming a Dustin Poirier. I think Poirier will test him in the first round or so, landing big punches, but I think Saint-Denis can walk through the biggest shots that Poirier has to offer, do more damage, and eventually even stop a Poirier. I could see him getting a rear naked choke as well, because Poirier is kind of, weakness in the game is that rear naked choke. And you look at the last 5 wins for Benoit Saint-Denis, 2 by rear naked. I could see Saint-Denis giving Poirier difficulty on the feet, especially in that second and third round. It ends up going to the floor, and I think Saint-Denis can strangle him. I think I'm going to go Saint-Denis by strangle. Rear naked. I'm calling Saint-Denis to choke out Dustin Poirier. I feel like this could be the biggest mistake of Poirier's career. Taking a fight against Benoit Saint-Denis, who looks like the next guy up, looks like somebody that could fight Islam Makhachev and give him potential problems. And he's taking this fight with McGregor teasing a comeback and a quadrilogy that could be on the table. I'm surprised. I just think maybe there's a financial thing going on with Poirier. I don't know how the hot sauce is doing. Maybe that's why he jumped at it. The UFC had to offer maybe a bag and a half for this one, a UFC 299 co-main event. I'm thinking to myself, UFC 299 is already super stacked. I thought we had Burns Madalena as a pretty great co-main event. Instead, they drop us another fight. We got Poirier and Saint-Denis in the co-main. And there's high stakes on it. With a win, I think Saint-Denis could be fighting Justin Gaethje, because that's kind of how the timelines are working. Because this next fight we're going to talk about, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan, the winner is said to be fighting for the lineal UFC light heavyweight belt, the real undisputed title against Makhachev in the summer. So I'm assuming Poirier versus Saint-Denis is for a shot at the BMF title. I'm going to say Saint-Denis wins it, and I think he's going to end up getting in that BMF spot. But let's talk about this number one contender fight, because Charles Oliveira was gifted or guaranteed. I won't say gifted. He definitely wasn't gifted. He's earned everything. But he was said to be given the next title fight against Makhachev.
Listen, you got to give it to Oliveira. I mean, Oliveira was ready to go. Unfortunately, got cut.
Now the word is out. Makhachev is not going to be ready until summertime. So Charles Oliveira accepts the young blood, the challenger on the come-up, Arman Tsarukyan, who just had a scintillating knockout of Beneil Dariush. Both guys coming off of wins over Beneil Dariush, but let's be real. As far as how the in-octagon performances went, Arman Tsarukyan's was more sick. Now, Charles Oliveira cracked the chin first and knocked out Beneil Dariush before Tsarukyan did, but the way Tsarukyan put him out with so much ease there, he had no resistance. Oliveira was taken down. He was put in, bottom guard position in the fight. It was at least a couple moments for Beneil Dariush. There was nothing for Dariush against Tsarukyan. And I have to say, I think that Arman Tsarukyan could take Oliveira down. I think Arman Tsarukyan could give Oliveira problems striking. And if he stuns Charles Oliveira, he will not fear following up and looking to finish the fight on the ground, which is a fatal flaw that most opposition of Charles Oliveira in his championship run in the lightweight division tend to fall, right? They don't want to fall him to the ground. They drop him with the punch, but they're terrified of the ground game. Not Arman Tsarukyan. He'll follow him up. Now I'm thinking about this fight. I think Tsarukyan is live to finish Charles Oliveira, but I also wouldn't be surprised with Arman Tsarukyan taking it by decision, because as of right now, it's looking like this fight is 3 5-minute rounds. I can see a competitive fight between both, a calculated Tsarukyan winning it on the cards. I think I'm going to call a decision for Tsarukyan. I wish it was 5 rounds, though. I think that would have made more sense. I think that would have been the better choice for the UFC, to push this fight into a 5-round bout for UFC 300. But I feel like there must be plans of multi-title fights on the card. And I know the UFC doesn't like to do more than 3 5-round fights on a main card, because shit can get too drawn out and long. The event can go way past the time it needs to. That's the PFL championship problem, because every fight's going distance and they got a 7-hour main card. That's not what the UFC is trying to do. But look at that. Arman Tsarukyan beating Charles Oliveira. I see him hurting him on the feet, following up on the ground, but I don't know about that finish. I'm thinking Tsarukyan can beat him by a decision, and I can already see it.
How dare you?
You're a Charles doubter. Charles is going to get him. What are you talking about? How's that possible? How are you going against Charlie O? The champion has a name. Listen. It's a new guard. It's new blood. I'm going for the new kids on the block to get wins over the veterans, right? I mean, it's not like Oliveira is old at 34, but we're in another spot. We got a 27-year-old prospect, a really contender prospect in Tsarukyan, versus the 34-year-old Charles Oliveira. Will the old guard fend off the young blood? I don't think so. I think Tsarukyan's bashing it in and winning. I've said on my live streams during the off weeks, I'm going Tsarukyan over Oliveira. I knew this fight was teased, but it wasn't guaranteed. We didn't know for sure. Now we do. And I think Tsarukyan's going to win. And this is a weird spot for Charles Oliveira because where does he go with a loss? Maybe a Conor McGregor fight. Luckily, that Conor McGregor fight could still be on the table if Arman Tsarukyan does beat him. He could maybe fall into the BMF rankings because Saint-Denis and Dustin Poirier is a fight for a shot at the BMF title. Oliveira versus Tsarukyan, shot for the undisputed title. And I think with a win of the BMF belt for Benoit Saint-Denis, I think there's a good chance that he would want to challenge for that real world title, and I bet they'd give it to him. And I think he'd be a really difficult fight for Islam Makhachev, especially a Benoit Saint-Denis who's gotten past Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Excuse me touching up my nose a bit, guys. I'm under the weather. It's 2 a.m, nose a little bit stuffed up and runny, but I'm still dropping a reaction video because I had to. I think these are epic moments. I think these fights are awesome. I love them. Now, if I have to guess the betting odds of both, I think Oliveira might be a slight favorite over Tsarukyan, with Benoit Saint-Denis as a slight favorite over Dustin Poirier. I got to go with the new guard. I just have a good feeling that these guys will pull through. I think Saint-Denis more confidently. I don't think Dustin Poirier can beat the new blood. Poirier's a good boxer, fun brawling style, but I think Saint-Denis gives him too much, man. Too much pressure, too much output, and just too like hybrid new skill set MMA. And then on the side of Charles Oliveira and Tsarukyan, I think Tsarukyan is way more explosive. Right now, I think he's the harder puncher. He's definitely more primed than Charles Oliveira, and he's going to be willing to follow him up on the ground, and that is a massive way to beat Oliveira. I could see Tsarukyan chain wrestling Oliveira and winning 30-27 on the cards in a lackluster decision, if anything. That's possible too. Damn, I love it. Damn, I love it. So my predictions here are Saint-Denis ends Dustin Poirier's career. He's going to retire him. Unless Poirier's getting like a McGregor fight or a Nate Diaz fight after this one, he's going to be far from the title picture. He's going to be far from the BMF title picture. And excuse me. And at 35 years of age, I think he's going to consider calling it a wrap on his entire career. And I don't think it'd be a horrible way to go out, losing to Benoit Saint-Denis, who very well might be a future French champion for the UFC. With Arman Tsarukyan and Oliveira, I almost think it's a mistake for Oliveira and Poirier to be taking on the new guard of guys on the come up, but you have to accept these fights. If you're going to hold your spot in the rankings, these new contenders got to get their chance to break into the upper echelon, and they have opportunities to bash right through the fucking door, and I think both of them will. So we're going with the new blood. I'm picking against the OGs, the guys I grew up on, watching, seeing succeed, and then get to, championship caliber. I'm doubting them both. I think they're both losing. It is what it is. I got to go those sides. I got to go with how I feel. For UFC 300, this is a really good sign because Oliveira was a necessary piece to the card. It needed to have that Oliveira spice in it with Arman Tsarukyan in a number one contender fight for the lightweight title. Because if you don't have the lightweight belt, Charles Oliveira is a pretty damn good second to having Islam Makhachev's title on the line on the card. Also at 300, we're looking at rumored, unconfirmed, but rumored main event. It says right now it's Leon versus Bilal. I don't think that ends up being the main event. I could see that as a co-main event. I don't think that's the main. I think the UFC will come up with something else. I don't think they're going to put Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards in the main event spot for UFC 300. I would be shocked by it. And damn, it's going to be really hard to follow up UFC 299 to 300 because look at 299's main card. O'Malley Vera, Poirier Saint-Denis, Burns Maddalena, Blades Almeida, Yan versus Song. On the featured prelim, Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. 299 very well could easily be flipped into 300, how stacked it is. I hope they got something crazy up their sleeve. Like I hope George St. Pierre is coming back or Ronda Rousey's fighting again. Or somehow they get Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, which I don't think is all that likely. But it's a fun idea. Banger news. Starting off the week well. I'm excited as hell for this fight week. We're back. UFC Vegas 84 goes down this Saturday. I'm going to have daily content dropping on the channel with news, with the live streams, with the predictions, the betting breakdowns. So keep it locked in right here on MMA Experts. Much love, everybody. Make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Definitely let me know. What do you think in the comments down below? Do you agree with my takes on these fights? Or you think I'm doubting the OGs and falling into the hype of the new blood? I want to know what my people are thinking. If you got nothing to say in the comments, but you just enjoy the content, as always, drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.